It's an overgrowth of Demodex mites, and it's characterized by collarettes and eyelid redness and inflammation. And it's interesting because I don't think we even understand how much it contributes.
Right.
Because there's usually some type of a comorbidity that's been going on, and we may have assigned 100% of the blame in one area.
I think the other thing too is I want everybody to kind of focus on these pictures, and I know we'll have a little bit more time here, but you see the collarettes, the waxy kind of, I mean, for me, what I tell patients, this is carcass, this is debris, it's not Doug Debris, but it's debris, it's feces, it's anything and everything you could think of. These little guys just eat and regurgitate and then just, put themselves all out on the lashes. But we have about 150 lashes on the upper lid. And what you're seeing here is I would say the staging of these is close to like a stage 2, stage 3, because when you stage them out, it's like you count the lashes. Now, nobody's asking you to do that, but look how much almost every one of these lashes has some amount of collarettes. And that, as you said before, Doug, is pathognomonic. You see the collarettes, that means inside that follicle, there is a mite party that's going on. They're raging, it's a rager, they're going cray-cray, okay? And they got no place to go, so what do? They come out and die and leave it all there.
Yeah, and patients will ask me all the time, oh, do you actually see the mite? No, I see what they leave behind.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah, and then...
So for some people, I'll sit there and say, it's like when you talk about like big cities, how everybody always talks about, like in New York, where they leave the trash on the streets and stuff, okay? This is the trash on the streets, and these are like New York rats. They're rats, yeah, so...
Well, Demodex blepharitis, when we talked about what is the prevalence and what is the Atlas study that we were talking about, then this was very interesting when you take a look at all comers to an eye care practice. It wasn't a specific type of practice. It wasn't a specific demographic. It was just all comers that were coming in to have an eye exam.
Were you part of it too? Yeah. It was, honestly, there's certain studies that you just love. This was one of the best studies I've ever done. I literally had to walk into a room. Now that was the hard part. Yep. And they say, there's a chart up, and I'm like, and then I had to go see the patient, but it didn't matter what they were there for, like you said. Contact lens exam, comprehensive exam, and all I did was say one thing, look down.
Yeah.
And these numbers blew me away.
Yeah, I know. 58% of those all comers to an eye care, coming in for eye care of any type, 58% of the eye care patients had Demodex blepharitis. Right. So collarettes, the presence of mites.
And it's interesting? So if you look at break out the data too, 60% have been treated for dry eye. And so oftentimes we're maybe kind of misdiagnosing. The other thing too is when you see 93% of these soft contact lens intolerance was found to have Demodex. Now, does that mean that it's because of that? But what you said, that it's contributing, there's something happening. And I think we get hung up on the word blepharitis. Yeah, is that I almost kind of feel like collectively as a profession, we have to have those specific symptoms. Do your eyes itch? No, not really. Do you feel like your eyes are red? No, not really. Is your vision fluctuating? Well, yeah. I mean, it's the symptoms, I think, are unknown to us a little bit.
Well, in that last point, that 93% of patients with soft contact lens intolerance were found to have Demodex. Yeah. I mean, you don't know, but it certainly draws some conclusion that was participatory in having that, and then 60% of the patients treated for dry eye.
And it's the question has been asked to me before about like with the lash extensions, and there's definitely inflammation that occurs from lash extensions, which to me is just another breeding ground for organisms like these ectoparasites that are indigenous to our follicles. Yeah. Good stuff.
So when we take a look at what percentage of all your patients have collarettes on their eyelid, this was from that March study that we did, and this was the response. And
the average was 31%, which to me demonstrates that we're underdiagnosing that. Yeah. I mean, and I think part of the reason why, oh look, there's Melissa. Hey girl, what's Melissa say? Yep, register suggests.
The number is much higher, approximately 25 million adults in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, which, again, I think I've always been concerned with us as a profession that we wait until patients have a problem to buy into a treatment, as opposed to us giving them the expectation of what possibly or is going to happen unless we do a treatment.
Yeah. And then this number, 2/3 of blepharitis cases are associated with Demodex mites. And the number of mites correlates with the symptom severity, density, and severity of the collarettes. But I think it's important that collarettes are pathognomonic of Demodex.
Right. Let me ask you a quick question there, my friend. Treatment. To me, there's a difference between management and treatment. And I think especially when we start talking about DRAHA and we start talking about Demodex blepharitis, I feel we're managing this, but everything we were doing before was kind of more superficial. And I don't deny that we should still be doing it, and we'll talk about those. But we've never got to the root cause of it.
Right.
And that's our biggest challenge with DRAHA, is that we can never get to it because it's so multifactorial.
So multifactorial. And then when we look, and that's why if I have a patient that has collarettes, I figure there could be a contributory factor in this that is perhaps one more source of inflammation and irritation.
Yes.
And therefore, if I can eliminate that, I'm going to. During a routine exam, do you perform an eyelid examination? And this, again, goes very along well with the numbers. And
no, but somebody said 1% of these people said rarely.
Yeah.
So what do you do then?
I think
you know what? They must work like in a retinal clinic.
They could
and
be.
And they go straight to the retina.
Yeah.
And they just like, forgets the lids. Yep.
Demodex blepharitis can cause eyelid redness and cylindrical deposits around the base of the lashes. But when we look, I think at that little volcano-like sign that builds around, and cylindrical, it doesn't have to go all the way down like a sleeve. It's just that buildup where you see it. And then you start looking at it, it almost looks like the eyelid has little blemishes all over the base of the lashes.
Well, the other thing too is that you do see erythema. You see thinning of the lashes is another sign. The other thing too is that oftentimes, these lashes basically, we grow a new lash. So the existing lashes that we're seeing are basically pushed out for the new lash. And so people will think, well, I'm not really seeing that collarette at the base because some of the lashes, it looks further out. So maybe that's more like a seborrheic blepharitis. When the reality is that more than often, it's the lash pushing out that collarette as it's going out there. But you just look at the base.
And with these patients also, it's not unusual to see a lot of just truncated lashes also,
right,
where they're just these little stubs that are breaking off. And you can tell because they're not the tapered look, it's just, and that could be from the rubbing, that could be from the irritation.
Yeah.
So, being able to diagnose Demodex blepharitis is really just as simple as having the patient, because when you're looking directly on, it's really easy to miss 100%. The stage 1, the stage 2, some even the stage 3.
Yeah, yeah.
But as soon as you have that patient look down, it becomes, it's kind of like meibomian glands, and when you look at non-obvious MGD. Well, until you press on the meibomian gland, and then it's obvious whether there's MGD. You have the patient look down and it becomes obvious. I think this is one of the simplest things that we can, with incredible sensitivity and specificity, diagnose very, very fast.
Before you go to the next slide, Doug, I think the other thing that we haven't really talked about is that the age group that we see Demodex in. And I think, when we first started talking about this, and this isn't new, and this is another favorite thing, when patients say, oh, is this something new? And it's never been, it's one of those things where we haven't talked to patients until they had a problem so that we can start managing the problem. Because otherwise, you'd say, oh, I found this, but we could try X, Y, or Z. Well, why do I need to do that? I don't have any problems. And remember, we saw that as we aged, then the prevalence increased as we got older. And so I think oftentimes people think this is a condition that is more relevant or more obvious in older patients. And when I mean older patients, I mean older patients.
I resemble that comment.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm seeing a lot more younger, and it's very interesting to me because I think that there is a common trait. It's, the fair-skinned patients. It's, the patients who maybe have a little bit of, definitely have rosacea. That correlation is strong as it should be. But it's weird because we have a video of a patient of mine that you were going to see in a couple seconds, and he was a young guy, horrible meibomian gland dysfunction, and I just happened to say, hey, can you look down? And blew my socks off, my friend.
Yeah.
So this is, I think you have to look at every patient. Oh, here he is. Yeah. Okay. Just look at that. Yeah. Poor kid. Ew.
And look at the erythema.
See the erythema. You know, beautiful lashes though. This is before we had any treatments. And you can see the existing chalazion that he had. That's another thing. Patients that have recurrent hordeolum, my thought immediately now is
Demodex.
look for Demodex.
Yeah.
Look for Demodex. And you can tell when this was. This was right around 2020, 2021. You can probably
Yeah, this is a great video in showing that. And I think that when that patient is looking straight on, because those lashes curl up, it's going to be
Can't see it.
difficult to
Can't
see.
see it.
As soon as that patient looks down, then
Yeah.
it becomes very, very obvious on that.
Yeah.
When you do an eyelid examination, do you have the patient look down or close their lids? This was the question that was asked in the optometric trends, and on this it was 49%.
Very cool.
Melissa says the goal is for all practitioners to routinely incorporate this step into their examination, ensuring that a thorough examination for signs of Demodex. I think this is the most crucial part. I mean, you can diagnose it.
Talk to me. Tell me how you would explain it.
Well, in my clinic, and I see those patients, and there is some type of irritation that those patients are having, just because of the nature of my practice. So what I'll tell them is there's a variety of different reasons that are causing irritation and inflammation with your eyes. And we're going to identify as many of those. One of those causes happens to be a small microscopic mite that can get into the eyelashes.
What?
Yes, I go right and tell them. And I say, and you kind of lose them for a little bit, and then you stop and you say, it has nothing to do with eyelid hygiene. It is non-discriminatory. It can be everywhere. As a matter of fact, almost 60% of every patient seeking eye care in a study has shown that this is the case. But I go directly and I let them know the mite. Now, then they have to kind of catch up with me because all they've heard is, I got a mite. And then they'll go, so that's like a lice. No, it's not like a lice. No, it's not like a bed bug. No, it's not. And just say, and it's just a physiology. It's just when the physiology is right, then the mite can overgrow the population and they can cause this irritation, inflammation. The good news is we have a very easy treatment for this now that is 2 drops a day for 6 weeks. And the patient really gets this sigh of relief at that point. And then they'll ask a question, well, what about the sheets? What about there's nothing you have to do with that. There's nothing you need to change. Everything, but you can't pass it on. It wasn't passed on.
I do it very, very similarly. So, and I think, I've gone and listened to our colleagues and I hear people say, well, you really need to set aside the time to have these conversations. I think if you find the right dialogue, and you say it kind of over and over again, then it just becomes natural and you can kind of like word off. So for me, it's like, I will look at patients, and my new thing now is when I'm looking at the slit lamp and I say, look down, I might do a or a oh, just so they go, oh, are you seeing something? Yes, and I'm gonna explain to you what I'm seeing. And then I let them know that, we coexist with viruses, bacteria, but we also have little parasites, little ectoparasites that also inhabit our bodies and co-share. There's one specific one that lives in the follicles. Everybody has it. It doesn't matter how clean or how dirty, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you know what nationality, gender, anything. But some people have an overproduction. And some people, genetically, it just overgrows. And when it overgrows, and then I use my city analogy or the debris leaving out there, and I'm seeing that on your lashes. And this is made from, the Demodex
Do you
mites.
actually call it a mite then?
I do. I say these are you have to.
Yeah, you have to. I think if you
have to.
Because people say, well, that if everybody has it and it's just all over, then I'm just going to leave it. No, it's causing irritation, it's causing inflammation. We don't know how much, but since we can take care of it easy. But I agree. I think you have to be very direct and say the same thing over and over and over. I mean, what I said to you is a slight variation of what I say to every patient. And then I have a scribe, and what I'll say is I'll have the patient look down and I'll say 2+, 3+ collarettes, go and she'll write that down. And then I'll say, I mentioned the word collarettes. Let me explain what that is. And so then I go right into that, and that same dialogue that I'll have, this little microscopic mite.
So something else that I've changed, and this is something that you can incorporate into your practices as well, is that I have told patients, would you like to see what I'm seeing? because we have a slit lamp camera. I can take a picture, and I've had probably 90% say, I trust you. No, thank you. It sounds nasty. Okay? I think the other thing too, though, is that if you don't have a camera, then download some images. Or better yet, just take your phone out, pretend you took a picture, and then show them a picture of somebody else. Go, this is you. If you were, a 7-year-old Asian woman or something.
If you had brown eyes, which you don't.
Which you don't, but let's,
But I think this is really the toughest area, and that's delivering the diagnosis to the patient. And I think when you're going to get compliance, I think you have to be straightforward with them. And
Yeah.